After a long day of work, I sat at the table with my dinner in hand. Alone in peace, I resolved the day in my mind. As I sat back breathing a sigh of relief, my phone began to ring. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered. A voice responded. I didn't recognize it. Their breath was unsteady, speaking quietly, so as not to be heard. They began to describe their surroundings. I knew this place. They told me to meet them there. Abruptly, the line went dead. A cold spike shot through me. I knew this place. It was my room down the hall. Engagement. What determines engagement? Every first draft I've written has missed something. They were all style and no substance. They lacked a true storyteller's touch. So I asked myself why a 3-act structure alone wasn't enticing. If I just copied Dan Harmon's story circle like a story by numbers, I should get a gripping Oscar-worthy picture. No matter how many stories I created, I rarely managed to get my audience to forget where they were for even a moment. I rarely created a state of pure engagement. And there it was. That became the question. What creates engagement? The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Terms you're likely familiar with are flow or a flow state. This refers to a state of mind where time seems irrelevant, where you're immersed in the task at hand. When you enter a flow state, you're balancing what you know with what you don't know, or the unknown. You're working at something that is just at the edge of your ability. So it's not too easy, but it's not too hard. If the task is too easy, you don't engage with it. There's no challenge. There's no element that feels necessary for you to pay attention to. If it's too hard, you don't engage with it. It's too chaotic or unfamiliar. Your abilities aren't sufficient enough to work with the multitude of elements. When we engage with something, we are walking the line of able and unable, known and unknown. And this idea of known and unknown ties in with storytelling. Order and chaos is fundamental to storytelling. Look no further than Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where our hero or the perspective of the story is journeying from the known to the unknown. Stories are not stories without change, no matter how nuanced. Who or whatever's perspective we're viewing the story from needs to experience change in any form. Change is to alter or make different than how it was, a death and rebirth. And we recognize the necessity for change. And as conscious creatures, we're torn between two paths, that of security and assurance, filled with that which we know and can predict, the purely habitual world, and that of vulnerability, the ability to look ahead, to plan for not what is, but for what could be, self and the possibility of self. Awareness of order, the known, and chaos, the unknown, keeps us eternally engaged. We can't exist without order. We can't exist without a perceptual structure, but chance or chaos exists of its own accord, enticing and terrifying. We cannot grow without confronting it, without a voluntary journey through the unknown. This attraction and desire for possibility can be seen in music, film, speech, and other forms of art. For example, music envelops you in a trance of rhythm, but rhythm alone is engaging. We actually tune out repetition quite effectively. There needs to be an element of unpredictability. We want a problem to solve. This is also found in comedy. A comedian combines story elements and alludes to a conclusion. They create the known or the setup, and we sit anxiously with the unknown. They throw up a few elements in the air and we wait to see how they're going to land. We wait for the punchline. We're lured by the potential resolution, and we enter the flow of story. So all of this being said, How do you tell more engaging stories? Let's use an approach coined by Pixar writer and director Andrew Stanton called the unifying theory of 2+2. After developing some of the most successful animated films of all time, Stanton and his team came to the conclusion that the audience does not want the answers given to them. They want to work for it. Don't give me the answer. Don't show me 4. Show me the elements that make up the answer. Give me 2+2. As Stanton puts it, the audience wants to work for their meal. When creating your story, show a familiar world, show a familiar situation, one that's easy to comprehend, but pose questions. Pose a question. Leave doors open and questions unanswered. Set up a shift in the world and only allude to what it could mean. Have your audience asking what that one thing means. In other words, what does the audience need to know in order to finish the story? Or better yet, how easy would it be to ignore the story if they never found out? Are you creating a dramatic need for the answer? Now, remember that this is a balance. Too much incoherence and incompleteness, and it might as well not be told at all. But if it's too complete, if it's too simple, if it goes without saying, then again, it's not worth telling. Again, think of flow. Too easy, don't engage. Too hard, don't engage. Compare an abstract art house film with that of a cheap comedy. One's too abstract and one is too easy. There's no shame in making abstract art house films and cheap comedies, but they generally don't sell because they're engaging. Now, a flow state isn't a means to an end, but a process. And you can think of story in the same way. It's a continual journey of known and unknown. Each story, each character, each scene, each line, it's all a balance. If you feel that your story is missing depth, it might be missing that balance. And you can fix this at any level of analysis. Your characters, what do we know about them and what do we not know? How do their actions imply their beliefs? For your first scene, what do we think is happening? What is actually happening? Or for each line of dialogue, what's being said? What is meant by what is being said? Your text and your subtext. And of course, this can turn into overanalyzing. So keep it simple. Are you creating a need for us to know what we don't know? So in exactly the same way you lose yourself in a state of flow, how you can work for hours in what feels like minutes, you can unlock a powerful tool to tell engaging stories. Take your viewers on a journey of known and unknown. As a teacher of mine once said, any image grasped too quickly will not leave a lasting impression, but to lead the eye through incomprehension and then to offer resolution. That is insight. You know, I was thinking about this outro, and I think it's a little bit redundant, so I want to give it a new spin. Express, engage, and influence.